to re-underwrite sort of your entire, not maybe your entire thesis, but how did you re-underwrite your thesis, given you have such a global outlook, and it seems like more and more there's a little bit more of a nationalistic bent to countries nowadays, as opposed to the old global outlook.
Yeah. Yeah, one could define it as like soft power is what they would say. This is the actual like terminology for it, which was, and this can obviously be debated between everybody, but there was a thinking that soft power, which is and global health has always been used as kind of a soft power component, which is being able to help bolster ecosystems, health ecosystems, particularly through foreign funded programs as a way of relationship building, has always been a core fundamental component of global health. The initial, and this is kind of also a lot of the work Grand Challenges has done, right? Their predominant focus has always been in maternal health. And when you look at these countries that have high maternal mortality and infant mortality, being able to bolster those systems, one from a moral perspective is obviously very good, but also from a health system strengthening component is also a vital component. And being in global health, most people in healthcare, they actually forget that there's a much bigger ecosystem outside of just US and Canada and Europe. There's a global ecosystem, and some of that is can be maintained and grown by governments that are doing well. But there are other governments in the world where things are very hard, and they do need assistance from U.S., Canada, Europe to bolster their health systems. And so that's been the traditional kind of mechanisms to bring funding into these markets. I think fast forward where we are today. I think so like for example PEPFAR program in the U.S. They've done a lot of phenomenal work in West Africa, bolstering a lot of the diagnostic and laboratory systems. So these are things that will have to change. I think it's really important for companies like Cross Border, but also global health funders to change with the times, right? And I think you might not align with everybody in terms of where they are going, but you have to respect that the work that U.S. has done over the last multiple decades. I think they were responsible for over like 70% of a lot of the global health funding through various programs. And so if that declines, it just means other people need to step up because the work is important. And it also means people in these governments in these countries need to step up. And I do think that with change, there is potential to leverage new technologies to reduce the cost base, significantly. And it might be tough times ahead, but maybe there's also opportunity.
Great, great, great. No, thanks a lot for that, Syria, because I think I personally, maybe I'm biased. I completely agree with you on that. It seems like at least your thesis is a, what's a term for it? There's a term for this where even though there's these changes maybe in the short term, it seems like your long term thesis is still very much hold out, because like
Yeah.
who doesn't want it to be like things to be cheaper and it to work, because right, and to be healthier. I don't think that's something that will
And
ever
I think
change, right?
also like less reliant on foreign aid, right? I think I've worked with a lot of these innovators in these markets. Work with a lot of the health institutions in these markets, and these are very proud people. They're phenomenal physicians, phenomenal doctors, doing a lot of work with very little, funding. And so, I think the promise of all this, the shining light in all this, recent events is they're ready, and they're ready to work with these technologies and leverage these technologies, and potentially reduce the cost base where they don't need that kind of funding. Every country wants to be responsible for their own maternal health program, right? And so maybe that's kind of, in some ways, that's the general direction of where things are going anyway, and it'll be probably a lot more accelerated going forward. But that's also why mechanisms like cross-border ventures, I think, are going to be very important. Not just cross-border ventures, but having a global outlook and having forms of capital that can provide innovators to go into these markets is going to be more critical going forward.